Three, two, one.
Hank, are you ready?
I'm born ready, mate.
Woo! All right, three, two, one. All right, everybody. Woo! So excited for this one. Thank you for being here. We have Hank van der Merwe, or how it's Dutch, but I always take everything
Perfect.
Latino.
Perfect.
Van der
Perfect.
Merwe with us today. And I got to tell you, Hank is one of the most interesting people that I have ever known him for a while. So really excited to have him. And before I have him kind of introduce himself a little bit more, we are coming to you live. Hank is in Queensland, Australia at 5 a.m. So much appreciated. I get the California time, 11 a.m. So appreciate you being with us, my brother. Give us we're going to get into your background and stuff, but just give us a little bit of information about you.
All right, born in Durban, South Africa, moved to Johannesburg, big corporate life. So worked for mobile phone companies as head of market distribution. So I used to look after field marketing, training, incentives, all of that kind of stuff. Had an epiphany. My boss was killed in a helicopter accident. I looked at the world and I thought there must be better things than this to do. Got into leadership development, spent the next 17, 18 years traveling around the world. I've worked in 26 different countries. I've written 5 books and predominantly in business leadership and coaching and resilience, and moved to Australia 2012. Then thought about, what can I do to make a difference with all the books that I've written? Started doing that in Australia, and fast forward to today, been involved with BlazePods, I think 4 or 5 years now. And that's the very fastest way I can ever talk about me. So, otherwise, it will take us hours if I tell you everything I've
Well,
done.
we're gonna get into it a little bit here. So when I met you, I was like, this guy's incredible. What does he do? And Simon says, oh, he's a motivational speaker. So
Simon
I know
says,
you do. Simon says, I know you do leadership training. I
yep,
love
yep,
your
yep,
concept of resilience. We're gonna get into that a little bit, but
yep.
give us a little information on the 17 years that you traveled the world doing this kind of coaching, leadership coaching.
Okay.
Uh,
So
yeah, talk about that.
I discovered, look at high school days. I was a sportsman, first team rugby captain, athletics. I used to do high jump, hurdles, discus, very, very sporty. And I had all the leadership positions at school: prefect, class captain, house captain, chairman of our grade 12, like all of those kind of leadership. I wasn't an academic. I didn't like class. I didn't want to be cooped up in a class. I just wanted to be out. And discovered later on in life that I could remember stuff. So when I learn something, I can remember it. When I read something, I can remember it. So I was very good at speaking. I was very good at rabble rousing. And I was listening to a Tony Robbins podcast the other day, and he was talking about leadership because every day I get up and I learn about leadership, something. I'm always sharpening the saw, as it were. And I learned about something. And Tony said that in order to be a leader, you got to change other people's state. And I thought, that's what I do. I change people's states because I'm able to get up and then, through the energy, enthusiasm, coupled with the science behind leadership, I was able to move people and get people to do things, which is leadership basically at the end of the day. And from there, I was sitting around the Christmas table back in 2006, and all my friends were moaning and groaning. They were all the glasses half empty kind of guys. And, they always say, "Are you the half full kind of guy?" And I say, "No, there is no glass. I mean, the universe is abundant. Why would you want to reduce it to a glass and tell me it's half full or half empty?" So I said, "No, there is no glass." I said, "There is whatever you want it to be." Anyway, so I wrote this book called Yes, I Can, Teenage Resilience Guide. And I used to go into these townships. And townships, if you don't understand the word in South Africa, is absolute squalor. You're talking about people living in shanties and, makeshift houses, no running water, no toilets, all of that kind of stuff. We used to go in there and go to the schools and talk about leadership. And the results were phenomenal. The kids would, it is so rewarding. I'd have like 500,000 kids at a time and talking about leadership. So it was very humble in the beginning. And anyway, so I wrote this book, and then I got into leadership development. I said my boss was killed in a helicopter accident, and I had the cushy corporate job, sitting in the corner office, private planes wherever we went, all of that kind of stuff. And I thought there's got to be more to life than this. I want to give back, and I've got a very high need for contribution. All right, because I want people to win. I just want people to win. The odds are stacked against you, whether you're a couple, whether you're married, whether you're single, whatever you are. All right, the world is stacked against you, and I wanted people to win. So I thought, okay, I'm going to use my skill. I'm going to use my position. And then what I did was I discovered Ken Blanchard. Now, Ken Blanchard, Escondido, San Diego, one of the most prolific leadership development gurus in the world. And I went and worked for him and got mentored by him. And I ended up being qualified on 14 of their programs, right? So 14 of their programs, they sent me around the world. I've been to some places that are really interesting. And from there, I thought there's something missing, right? There's something missing because I'm only teaching one aspect of leadership. So with this hunger for leadership, what did I do? I went and discovered, emotional intelligence. That's what's missing. So I went and studied under Dr. Martin Newman, and Martin Newman, who wrote the emotional capital reports, which is this emotional intelligence assessment, studied under him, and I thought, okay, I got it. So leadership and EQ, and then I thought, no, something's missing, and then I realized, there are different types of personalities. So I was training DISC at the time through Blanchard, and I thought, let me go and study DISC. So DISC is personality profiles. So I went and studied with Wiley, and now I'm qualified on the sales DISC, management DISC, like all of that kind of stuff. Productive conflicts, 5 behaviors of a cohesive team, and I thought I got it. It's leadership, EQ, and personality. And I thought, nah, something's missing. And I discovered a guy in Holland called Dr. Fons Trompenaars, who's the father of culture, as it were. I thought that's what's missing is culture. So I went and studied under him. And now I do dilemma reconciliation, servant leadership, and 7 dimensions of culture. And so what I've done, so every time I see there's a gap in my knowledge, I go fill it up. You'll see there's books plenty. I'm always learning, always reading. And on top of that, I added Tony Robbins coaching programs, Dr. Joe Dispenza's work, a lot of neuro-linguistic programming, NLP. So from that background is the lens which I see the world. I look at people and I see what they can be, not what they are. And that's my curse, as it were, because when I'm coaching people, I look at them and I go, okay, I can see what you can be, I'll help you. So I bring all of this to the party. And when talking about resilience, what I discovered was you cannot think greater than you're feeling. And the best way to change what you're feeling is to change what you're doing. Hence the name of the company, Think, Feel, Do. Because you can't think greater than you're feeling, and the best way to change what you're feeling is to change what you're doing. So with this mindset of serving, servant leadership. And by the way, servant leadership, I've just wanted to tell everybody, servant leadership means we serve a cause and we lead people. It's not about acquiescing to the mob, right, and giving them what they want and giving them hugs and kisses. It's rather saying we're serving this cause and we're leading people. And in that pursuit, I started increasing the amount of books that I wrote. So I wrote a book on resilience for real estate. I wrote a book on resilience for sport, right? So I actually brought it here. I got the Sports Resilience Guide.
What was your first book? Because that's
Yes, I can. Yes, I can. Teenage Resilience Guide. This is number 4.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. So that's the one. I started writing books on that. And then, so now I've got, the other book that I wrote that Ken Blanchard actually endorsed was Live on Purpose. And for me, living on purpose means live by your rules, your life by your rules for your reasons, and thrive in the face of massive global change. Don't know if you've looked around, change is happening, and people who are not prepared for it are becoming irrelevant really, really quickly. So again, that's why I want people to win. And that's what my bias is. But, the think products are all the books that I've written. The feel products are all the emotional intelligence stuff that we do. And the do product is BlazePod. So it's a beautiful combination. And I go into schools and I go into corporates and we start with one. So maybe they want to talk about the book, right? So I've got a school, local school we worked with. We did, I think, over 900 books where the entire middle school have all gone through my program. And then we put BlazePod in there, and then we put emotional intelligence. So, we tested our work with the local schools, and we went deep rather than wide to begin with. And and that way the product is robust. So that's pretty much what I do.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I love the think, feel, do. I've heard that statement several times, right? You can't feel
Can't think greater than you're feeling.
Yeah, you can't think greater than you feel. And I really like that. And the other thing that I think that you talked about that I think is amazing is the ability to adapt to changing situations. And not to like pull this into BlazePod, but I pull it into who I am as a strength and conditioning coach. I've been doing it for my whole life, and that the industry changes. We're breaking records, more records in the last 5 years than we've broken 20 years. And I always think, what is that? And we look at the research we have now, the neuroplasticity and all the work that's being done by these amazing, the medical community or doctors or SSC, whatever it is. and we are really learning how to tap into the brain in a way that we weren't able before.
We're
And
still scratching the surface.
I can't remember who said it, but I was talking to I used to work with Audrey Geisel, Dr. Seuss's wife, and she was really into neurocognitive, and one of their doctors that was at this in La Jolla had said, "We'll know in 1,000 years, we'll know as much about the brain as we know now about the heart." And
Yeah.
it just makes sense, right?
Yeah.
So it's through that. But I think what you're talking about is you're tapping into the brain in all of these different ways. You call it,
Yes. Yes.
whether it's EQ or culture or
Yeah.
leadership,
Yeah.
that's all here. We always
Yeah.
say, oh, it's hard, it's grit. Well, the heart doesn't do that. There's no hormone transfers that do that. That happens right here. And so
Mm.
all of that is about it. So in this think, feel, do paradigm, or this program that you have when you go into some of these schools,
Mm.
um, you start with the think, the feel, and then get into kind of the do. Give us kind of the an
Okay.
example of how that works.
Right. So each school is different. So it depends what their immediate need is. So for the most part, Australians are sedentary. Don't think that this is a sporting nation. We're sedentary, and we've got a massive problem, and it's global. The sprint to McDonald's is probably the fastest time a lot of people have. 'Cause you got so many specials. So it depends on the need of the school. Now, if I go in and the discussion is around resilience, we'll typically go in with the book, and we'll go, okay, we got this book. But it actually starts much higher, because if you think about school communities, there's the parents, the teachers, and the kids themselves. So it takes three communities to raise a child. Right. I mean, when I was a kid growing up in South Africa, back in the 70s and 80s in South Africa, it was just free reign. That you did whatever you wanted. You were out playing. Your mother would be looking, where are you? And as long as the street lights come on, then you go home, type of thing. But it's a very different world they live in now. So kids are not resilient. And if we go into a school and we find they've got a problem with anxiety, with depression, with potential suicide, biggest cause of death in teenagers in Australia is suicide. You just cannot believe we've got such an amazing country. Everything that opens and shuts that you need is here. Yet the kids are still depressed at levels that are ridiculous. In fact, it was interesting. Stanford University did a study, and they said one of the biggest problems we have in the world is meaninglessness. So hence the purpose drive, right? So I'd go into a school, work with the headmaster, with the teachers, right? Work with them, and that's the corporate stuff: vision, mission, values, behaviors, strategy, right? All of that kind of stuff. And then from there, hop skip into the pedagogy, right? And then go in with Yes I Can, and go in with a book. And then I've got a series of videos that comes with the book, so they watch it on screen. Because think about it, to know what I know, you got to do what I've done. And sometimes for a teacher, they're just teaching it as a subject. So I put videos up, and they watch me talking about all the different modules in the book, and they do that. And there's a book that they write in, and I've actually just funny enough, my daughter said to me the other day, it would be cool if the book was a novel. So I said, done. And I actually wrote another version of Yes, I Can, but it's from like a novel from a young teenage girl's perspective. And it's called Olivia's Story. And it's basically a novel about
Oh,
how a young girl is going through friendship troubles, and the kind of stuff that they're experiencing, how they're experiencing it. And then Olivia goes to the guidance counselor, who then pulls out Yes, I Can, and they go through the principles in the book. So it doesn't look like they're learning, but they are. So we've done that, and I'm just writing it from a boy's perspective, which is obviously I use my daughter Jocelyn and my son Jared as my models, excuse me. So that's typically what we do. We'll go in with that book. Then obviously emotional intelligence is important. It's a massive part of your ability to be successful, is to understand what you're feeling, why you're feeling, and the effect that it has on other people. So we do emotional intelligence assessments, and it's amazing to see, once you get all the data and you put up the grids and you start looking at the data, the story that I can tell you from a bunch of numbers. I can tell you the kids that are at risk, all right? The kids that are going to be bullied. I can tell you the kids who have been bullied, all right? I can tell you the kids who don't want change. I can tell you the kids who do want change. I can tell you, it's crazy. And then the teachers look at it and they go, wow, that tells us so much. So they're able to look at a class and they go, okay, this one's low on straightforwardness, so they're not going to say no. This one's high on relationships, so they're going to be chatting all the time. time. This one, is, if you think about like not very empathetic, this one doesn't. So it's a complete game changer. And then when you combine that with the purpose of the book plus understanding yourself, and you think, okay, now I've got all this knowledge. Knowledge alone is not going to move you. It's got to feel good. Like if you think about when you're in a great state, you make better decisions and you do more. When you're not in a great state, you don't. And then we bring in BlazePods. And, in the beginning, it was like, oh, what are these flashing lights? And then obviously with, watching your work and watching what Simon has done over the past 4 years, we've been able to, we actually took the Australian school curriculum and we linked BlazePod to every single code in the Australian school curriculum. So we linked it to four things: the Sport 2030 campaign. We linked it to the what was the other one? The HPE, with the health and physical education. We've linked it to four different areas.
Wow.
Physical literacy. We literally sat for 6 months and linked BlazePod to everything, because a lot of people in Australia come up with some fancy gadget and they say linked to the curriculum. All right, and you go, how? I did it. I've got the codes. If somebody says, how is it linked to the curriculum? I'm going to say like this. That's where. And, we started testing it with the physical education teachers, and the challenge that we had in the beginning was BlazePod looks like it's an individual sport. Like whenever you look in an app, it's just individuals. And I had to think, well, that's not going to serve the need of a physical education teacher because they got a class of 24 people. How do I do that? So we went and studied all the games that we could play, and we were inventing stuff. And I remember in the early days, Cooks and used to tell me, just sell BlazePods. And I was like, no, I'm inventing stuff. Like I invented that BlazePod wall years ago. All right, I made one. And Simon and them used to laugh at me at, the stuff that I came up with. And that's how I got to the PodGames. So that's what we do. We go in with the think part, which is resilience. And the book is really fun. It's not like a textbook. It's fun. It's got pictures, and I use Sketchwell to do the pictures, so it's fun, and the videos are fun. And there's that. And then I've got a accreditation for teachers. So I teach teachers how to sell this, or not how to sell this product, how to train the product. And then we've got emotional intelligence, and that's when I started getting into more of the sporty side of stuff, because we've got an emotional intelligence assessment for elite sportsmen. You give me an elite sportsman, I'll do an EQ assessment on them. I'll tell you how they're going to do, and basically through the assessments. And then I started working with, some of my Springbok rugby friends.
Yeah, we'll get into that in 1 second. I want to ask you just a couple other questions, because
that's it.
Yeah, you had sent a document over, and you're right. You had the full blown, like, this is how all of these games or all the drills for PE, and this is the association. Here in the US, it's a little different. I know that there are grants now that people have been able to find, which is great. I know that Kansas, the Topeka school system has brought BlazePod into all their schools. In Southern Indiana school district, they have as well. So there's a couple people tapping in, and like you said, they're using it a lot for, one of the greatest ways. There's if a kid is having problems like associating with the other classmates, he'll go off and do his BlazePod. It's kind of his way to like check out and do some things. After recess or after lunch, when the kids are kind of like, they can't focus, they'll do some BlazePod drills to help these kids refocus. And so it really is a cool way of, and I like what you've done, because you've actually categorized it. And there are these thought leaders and these super users, we call them, who will take it and say, okay, this is how we get someone to refocus. This is how we get somebody to relax. This is how we get someone to let out aggression. This is how we get someone to, like, for a team building drill. And they've kind of created all this within the app itself. And so I do really appreciate everything that you kind of like constructed for us early on, because it means a lot. Following in with schools, before we kind of get into the rugby programs, you accepted something that is pretty cool. In fact, there was you helped us write a blog that is on Go for Sports, with a couple of the contributors to it. It was what you had sent us it was so impactful for me. We couldn't put it all in that global blog that went out, but you had talked about something called you had created something called the PodGames. So I'd like to talk about the PodGames, because I would love it. Kind of your mission statement or your memorandum was like, this should be global. And when I read it, I was like, why isn't this global? How do we make this global? So talk to the PodGames, A, how you created it, B, the impact of it and see what you'd want it to do for the future, or
All right.
what would you like to see it as, in the
Love
future?
that question. Love that question. So let's start from one. BlazePod, if you just look at it as a commodity, it's a flashing light, right? And if the goal is to sell these, then the strategies will be around how do we sell more of these? And I looked at it and I thought, that's not the point. This is a means to an end, right? The means to an end is to get people moving, and it's to get people communicating, it's to get people like all the social stuff, all the physical stuff. That's what BlazePod's for. It's what it does. It's not what it is. And I started looking to say, well, if you sell a school a bunch of blaze pods and you leave them alone, what are they going to do with it? Right? Like any good product, they're going to like, they're going to take it, they're going to try it for a while. They're not going to fully understand it. They're not going to integrate it. And you're going to end up putting them on the shelves. Right now, we know globally, it doesn't matter what item you have. Eventually, that's the trajectory. So I started thinking, how do we get people to compete against each other? Because that's where the fun is. They want to compete. And how do we do that? So I happen to be, I've been like, I love CrossFit. That's like watching CrossFit. It's just incredible. And I was watching CrossFit and I thought, there we go. These guys have got a platform already. It's a global platform. All right. Now, during lockdown, what did they do? They went democratic. So they said, okay, do your CrossFit at home and send us videos of you doing the exercise, and we'll do like a global leaderboard. And I thought, why not? Let's do that for BlazePods. Anyway, I was thinking, so how do we do that? And I happened to be watching a strange program on Netflix. Loved it. It was called the Squid Games. And I'm watching the Squid Games, and I think, okay, hang on a second. So we got CrossFit and we got the Squid Games. If I put the two together, and hence the name PodGames, but if we put the two together and we somehow democratize it where we could send, and funny enough, that's what we're doing at the moment. We're sending out monthly challenges where we could
Yeah.
send our challenges to people, get them to do blaze pods at home, and then, send us scores, then that would be a win. I thought, okay, so, and we had the Olympics was on at the same time. I thought, okay, decathlon, let's try that. So eventually what I do, we hired out this sporting hall. I think it had something like, we were on, if I can remember correctly, 5 or 6 basketball courts. All right. And we took the whole area and we took 10 different stations. We called it the Pod Games, and we invited all the kids on the Gold Coast. All right. We invited the kids on the Gold Coast and we had 10 different stations. I trained up, a whole bunch of people. Each station did something different, and it was so inclusive. It was available for everybody. So whether it was sprinting, whether it was fast hands, whether it was, being, creative, whatever, we had games for everybody. We had 10. And that was the inaugural. We were on television. We had local, uh, what were they? Local businesses get involved. We had local members of council get. We were on television. It was hysterical. We had all these kids running around. I thought, there we go. The concept worked. Right, the concept worked. Then I thought, okay, how do I now take it to a bigger audience, and hence the pod game. So now what we're trying to do, and obviously we need help. We'd love if anybody's out there, wants to help us get this off the ground. Is now what we want to do is we want to go global, right? And we want schools all over the world to do exactly what CrossFit Games are doing. Send us your scores. And obviously we can keep it, confidential who the kids are. Just give them you give them a code and that, type of thing. But let's get the entire world on BlazePods. We'll give them the exercises. You do them, send us your scores, and we'll do a leaderboard and we'll see who wins, who's the fastest. So from the success of the pod games, we then started going to schools to say, okay, here's a set of BlazePods. Obviously, as a master trainer, I'll show you how they work. And we give them the bare minimum and we get them going. And we say, now there's a school up the road who's also got blaze pods, and they want to compete against you. They want to challenge you. And now we get 2 schools to go and challenge each other with their blaze pod team. And sometimes it's the kids who are not necessarily the most athletic that are actually quick, but they're not fast. They don't run fast and that type of thing, who get involved. And it's incredible. We've actually just done an activation in a local school down the road here where we went and gave them their blaze pods, got them set up on the app, showed them how it works. They're going to be tapping, and then, because we're on holidays now, we will be next week. And then come back next year, we're going to compete against a school. The last school we did, we had 550 kids. And here's the kicker. We didn't run it. We set it up and we stood back, and the kids ran it themselves. Right?
Yeah.
They had their phones and they did everything. We showed them how it worked. That this app is just so user friendly. The kids did it themselves, and they'd only put up their hand if there was a challenge with something, and we'd run over. But we basically stood back and watched a whole bunch of senior kids help the little ones go through the pod game. So our goal, our dream is for the entire world to be to be competing on BlazePod. Send us your scores and let's see who's the quickest on earth. Who's the quickest? And my vision is for local competitions where we fill up the halls and we have thousands of kids coming, and international competition. So, my vision is bigger than my capacity, but that's the point. Let's get going. Let's get the kids moving, because if they're moving and they're laughing and they're happy, they're not sitting on their devices like this. All right. And if they're happy, they're making better decisions. Oh, look at that.
You got the update, obviously.
I got the update. It's actually quite funny. I forgot about it the other day. I was doing quite a serious coaching call and that came up.
That's so funny. You brought up two things that are, well, a lot of things that are so interesting. I love the idea of that PodGames. I love the idea of just competition. I can attest to the fact that I'll have a booth somewhere. Kids will come over. I have a little iPad stand. I literally get pushed aside and they're running the drills, calling people over. So it is very self-sufficient. I think because we live in an app-based culture and the kids they grew up on them, there is no troubleshooting issues. It seems like the older population are the ones that are like, I don't exactly understand how to connect. I don't exactly, and you get these kids that are like, give that to me. And they blow right through it. What is it besides the analytics and the data where it gives you a score and your reaction time that you say, oh, you got 30, I got 29, you beat me, it's obvious. What is it about the BlazePods themselves that you find are so engaging for these kids? Why is it better than colored balls? Why is it better than colored phones or numbered things in your expert opinion?
All right, so that's interesting that you should mention colored balls, because there are a couple of companies out there that have got colored balls, as it were. Get a ball, put colors on it, and then you catch it and you look at the color and then you behave. And you are limited because you can only do one color. Even if you've got a ball with 2 or 3, 4 colors, well, it doesn't matter. You're limited because there's an instruction with that color, right? And sometimes it's actually written on the ball. Now, why this is better is because I can do anything with this. It's first of all, the construction is amazing. It looks sexy, right? The colors are amazing. The bright colors, and when they're flashing and they're going off and you hit it and you get that instant reward, right? There's that aspect. There's the fact that I can use this for 100 different things, right? And I'm not limited to just the ball. Right, I'm not limited to that. So it comes down to your imagination. My daughter created what I think is the world's first BlazePod art. She put them all on a big A0 piece of paper. The lights were going off and she was drawing lines in between the lines, between the lights. Yeah, and I thought, okay, that was her expression. BlazePod's lighting up. She's drawing lines and she ended up with the squiggly line thing, different colors. And I go, okay, there we go. So you can express yourself. You can just look at it and you go, what is the outcome that I'm trying to achieve? Well, I want to get people to move from here to there, to there, to there, to there, and do something at each station. How do I do it with BlazePods? Well, you do a sequence and then, off the lights go. So I think the versatility is what makes these things amazing. Absolutely amazing. They're robust and they love the idea of stacking them up and watching them charge. I've seen people sitting watching them charge, like as it's red, green, and like, wow, okay. So I think it's the versatility, it's the innovation, the fact that that at BlazePod, you guys are not just you haven't just made it and said, well, there it is. You're constantly looking, well, how to improve. The fact that there's updates and it's technology. All right, so it's technology and it's practical technology. And the thing I love the most about it is if you can dream something, if you can think of, I want to get that right, BlazePod can help you do it. If you end up with a colored ball, you can't. You're limited to, okay, there it is. Red ball, blue ball. But what I've also been able to do is say, let's take BlazePod and enhance what you already have. So if you've got colored balls and you've got bean bags and those kind of things, integrate them into BlazePod. All right. So the one where you've got the pods and you've got the colored bean bags and you've got to swap them over and tap. And there's so many variations of that. And we'll talk about what I've done with Rugby where, I can get 24 people operating in one go with BlazePods.
Yeah, we're gonna get right into that.
Yeah, so that's it. The innovation, it's sexy. The colors are amazing. Even the how it's put together, it's robust. My dog's eaten this one. It's still working.
The two things I see that I love are, number one, there's this idea of red light, green light. They don't do anything, so they're completely focused, which is something I found with kids with ADHD, hypertensive. It's they can't focus, but when they're waiting for something, when it happens, then they get it. So there's that focus component to it. And I even set a light delay time when I'm working with kids with autism or have focus issues. I'll put it like on 7 to 10 seconds, like random. So now they have to wait and wait.
Anticipate.
And then when it goes, it's the difference between, hey, go run the mile, which I still hate. It's like, oh, healthy, what is it, California 2000 or something, or the presidential fitness test we have here. It's like you got to run a mile in faster than, I think it's like 8 minutes or something like that, 7 minutes. It's just such a poor test because it's like all that is willpower. Everyone can do it, like 90. I mean, you should be able to do it, but the idea is it wasn't maximal intensity. It wasn't maximal output. And when you have to reach a target, there's something to that. Like, I'm going to time how fast you go. If you're timing somebody, I'm going as fast as I can, as opposed to just kind of sandbagging it or going a little bit slower. I think that is one of the things that I like the most, is it forces these children to go 100%. And when they go 100%, they're getting better. It's when you just go through the motions that you're not releasing any of those really powerful growth hormones, norepinephrine, acetylcholine, all that amazing brain juice that is going to help them grow and be smart. They're not allowing themselves to do it because they're not going at 100%. And that's what another benefit of BlazePod.
But there's another layer to that. So something else that we did, we said that, okay, because you got some of the smart kids. Now, what you were talking about it reminded me of that quote: if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it's going to spend its entire life thinking it's stupid, right? And different people have got different types of intelligence and different types of gifts and things. So what BlazePod does is it actually matches all of those. We did one where we had colored bean bags with numbers on it, right? So now we're testing this. So when the color goes off, they swap it, but they got to remember the number. Okay, now they got to do mathematics. So they got to add 17, 20, 5, 10, 11, and they got to get to the total. And to win, you got to get to the right number plus get all the pods off. And then you then you see the numbers go slow, right? Because now they're thinking, okay, what is 17 plus 11, right? And under pressure, now they've got to, they've got to bring their knowledge, and they've got to bring it now, right now. It's not a next week thing. It's not a defer thing. It's now. So we were even able to use it with mathematics.
Yeah, you got into so many of the cognitive abilities right there, and that is one of the things that people don't realize and that coaches don't realize. And I want everybody who's watching this to realize, just because you're running them through something and you feel like it's a game, what you're not understanding is there's working memory, divided attention, sustained attention, delayed gratification, all the executive functionings in the brain are happening. There's so much that's happening utilizing them when you just play one game. So like you said, there's so many different outcomes and goals that can happen. And this can just balance all those athletes out. So
but it also explodes just before you go. It also explodes, and that's the problem. I'll look at it and I'll come up with it and I go, boom, here's 25 things we can do. Because as soon as because I'm a divergent thinker, so as soon as I'm convergent and divergent, but I'm thinking, wow, what could we do with this? Boom, and it explodes. And then I got to rein myself in, because where do you end? So you got to
I think that's the biggest problem at BlazePod. I know when I look through the drills and Simon is like, the mad scientist creating all these drills.
Yeah.
We're trying to organize them in certain ways. And we're like, well, wait, this is for kids. This is for rugby. This is for people who are shooting. This is for tactical, this is for soccer. Yeah. There's so many different components to it that has been the hardest thing. When someone goes, what's that drill called? We're like, we don't know. We know it's in there, and we gave it the best name we could. So the tagging feature in our exhaustive filtering system is better. You can the search function is awesome now too. So
absolutely,
really, that's the one great thing of having such amazing engineers as our team, is when we figure out these problems in situ, in field, we send those issues back and they can regulate it. But
yeah, I've done that many times. Yeah.
Well, one of the things that I appreciate about you, and I want you to talk about, is there are a lot of coaches out there from, rugby, lacrosse, soccer, football, you name it, these team sports. And a lot of the questions we go, oh, we get how you do individual, we get how you do, small groups of 3 or 4 or 5. But you sent me a video. I saw a couple of videos of yours, and you're training teams of 20, 30, 40 kids.
Yeah.
I want you to help the coaches out and kind of talk about, because I know you've gotten them in professional teams, right? You got the Springboks, the All Blacks. I saw the English national team using them. Your favorite team, the Blue Bulls, are using them. And I know that you're responsible for that, but then you're working with some non-professional teams. So talk through
Right.
how you
Okay.
integrated them into rugby and kind of go into that
Okay.
for a bit.
All right. So to start off with, you're right. It does look like on a surface level that BlazePods are for individuals. Okay. However, there are competition elements. So there's already stuff that's in there. So like the agility star where you put four people into the middle and they got to run out and tap. So what I did was I looked at, okay, how do I get a lot of people moving at the same time? So I started with obviously with groups of four. So how do I get four moving, six moving? Six is easy, right? Six is easy. All you do is you put the pods in a circle and you've got six people around and you give them all a color. All right. So typically what I'll do is I'll take a rugby ball and I'll just put tape around it or give them a bib. So there's six, we're all lying, all right? And we're watching and the lights go off. Okay. I've got to find my color. Right. So I've got to sprint to my color. Now so if I've got red bib on, I've got to sprint to the red light and tap it out. But everybody else is sprinting to theirs. So whether you do that as a competition, it doesn't matter. So immediately I take care of six people just by doing that. Okay. Then I figured, okay, there's something else that we can do here. We can either run round, right? Everybody run round, so they've got to avoid each other, or you can cross, right? And that's running, okay? Or keep the ball in your hand. Now you've got to throw the ball, right? So now the ball has got a red band on it, and the red light goes off over there. So let's say it's just you and I. So your light goes off. So sorry, I'm standing here, you over there. I've got a red ball. Your light is red. I've got to pass you the ball. Okay. You then got to catch the ball and you got to throw me your one. So at the same time, we've got we got to pass. You catch it and then you tap it out. We do that with six people. Okay. Now I can have people waiting. So all of a sudden I've got 12. I can have two people waiting. So now I've got 18. All right. So it just keeps, changing around and it creates that game like manic, behavior. And that's just one of the games. The other thing that I did was I took 12 pods, put them in a row. All right. And got 24 people standing facing each other. All right. So there's 12 pods in a row and then the lights go off. Now, if it's red, roll the ball. Okay. Or pass with your right hand. If it's blue, pass with your left hand. If it's yellow, throw it over your head. If it's green, pass it around your body. All right. So now you've got 24 people lined up and they're all just reacting and it's going off at different, like, draw. And there's, if you look down they can't anticipate because you look down the road, one's green, one's red, one's blue. So, so it's different. So now, and what I discovered, also listening to the neuro people was there were several things happening at the same time. So one, it's reaction. Two, it's the physical movement. Three, it's the distraction because you've got 24 people throwing balls around. So there were so many levels. So that was just, another game that we came up with. 12 pods in a row. Now I've got 24 people and they're passing the ball. With the kids, we called it bounce, roll, pass. So if it's blue, bounce it like just a little tennis ball, but we use those big tennis balls. If it's blue, bounce it. If it's red, roll it. And if it's yellow, throw it, type of thing. And then just when they get it, we change it. All right, change it to something else. Yeah. And you change the colors. So that just when they start getting used to it, now you add another layer. So, if I think about all the games, the way that I've designed it, and that's why I said it blows up, because you think about, I've got this one game and you go, what if I did that? And you actually got to rein yourself in. And my advice to any coach is don't get caught up in the novelty of it. Think about the outcome. What are you trying to achieve? What are you trying to do? And then work backwards. Because otherwise everybody will just be tapping and they'll go, that's great, but they don't really move forward, right? And to move forward, BlazePods have got to be integrated into what you're trying to achieve. So for example, just the height of the BlazePod changes things. Now, if you've got those dummies, if you put a BlazePod at chest height and you're running, right? So that was one of the other things we did. You're running, you got a ball in your hand, light goes off, you got to pass it, okay? But it's got to be this high so that, their peripheral vision, because from a sporting point of view, you're not looking down, you're not looking down, you're looking up, heads up. So that was something else that we did. Well, one of the other ones, which is a great competition, is you get 3 rebound nets, right? And you put the BlazePods behind them and then you throw, all right? So you throw quickly and it's quick hands, it's type of thing. And then you've got these things, all right? So this is a rugby ball that you throw against the wall. All right. So again, I can do it on my own, right? Right hand is red, left hand is blue, throw it over my head, put it around my body, type of thing. So, what I'm trying to see in the sporting teams is that BlazePod is used in the team, right, for the activation, the arousal. I'd love to see it if anyone gets sent off, that they're sitting there playing blaze pods to get their mind right, but I don't think you're allowed to do anything like in rugby. And then they also, everybody, my suggestion is that they all get a set of blaze pods, take them home and practice in the off season, right? And just, it's got to be ubiquitous. If you're constantly working on your reaction, because you cannot catch and think, what shall I do now? It's got to go, boop, boop, and it's got to happen. The
And that
difference
was that.
between, yeah.
I was just gonna say this, the study that was done on that, all the elite level performers were able
Yeah.
to perceive stimulus, process it,
Yeah.
make the right decision faster than anybody else. That was the biggest differentiator between an elite level performer and an average performer.
Yeah, if you're gonna stop for a moment and then they say he's weighing up his options, he's weighed up his options, or she's weighed up her options. She knows what's coming next. It looks like poetry to us, and we go, the word that we use to describe it, we say they look like they've got a lot of time, right? They seem to just be in that flow, and you watch them, and it's like the Matrix, man. But the only reason they can do that is because they've attuned themselves and they're constantly working on themselves, and they know the stimulus. They know just like a flitter of this is going to happen, and I know what that means, and then off they go. So that ability is the difference between a chump and a champion.
Yeah, and the guy who kind of coined that term years ago, has been passed away, was the book was called The Flow State, or Flow, by Chisholm Ahai, Dr. Chisholm Ahai. And
Yeah.
it's so true. It's like, how can we get into that flow state? You brought up two types of training that have become very popular now because of these purists. Now, a lot of people say, if you're training with blaze pods in a wall, in a clinical environment, the crossover's not there. And
Mm.
there's some truth to that. I'm kind of a purist too. What is my goal? There's that goal-oriented task. And then you
Yeah.
use ecological dynamics, right? You're going to bring in all of the different, like the noise of the audience, the lights, maybe coach screaming, all of these things. That's playing under duress. And that's what BlazePod does by timing it. If you don't get
Mm.
there in that time, it'll time out. Or you have
Mm.
to react as quickly as possible, or you don't get those points. So it creates that sense of urgency. It creates that noise like you do with the 24 players at the same time. What I
Mm.
like is that you're actually on a rugby pitch. You're
Mm.
using a ball, and that's the representative design. These guys are actually doing movements that are very rugby focused. And so I look
Correct.
at a lot of other products that are out there, and BlazePod is one of the one, because of the modularity of them, the quick, easy carry pack on the field. Whether it's ice hockey, you can do ice hockey drills on ice. You can do
Mm.
rugby, type
Yeah.
training on the field itself, in rugby cleats, boots, on the pitch. Like,
Yeah.
that's where Eco D and representative design, like, just flourish. And it's exactly what you're saying. They're not faking movements. They're not creating movements in a lab. They're doing it in situ, live representative movements. And that, where most people say, has the best crossover to
Yes.
sport and what they're trying to get at it.
So remember, if you do it in a lab, you've got the ability to rehabilitate people, all right? So somebody who's coming back from injury who can't be out in the field, they can at least be doing something. The other benefit, I think, is the fact that there's a 40-meter distance between your phone and a pod. That gives me 80 meters on a field, right? Because if I'm standing in the middle, I can go 40 that way or 40 that way, and it's going to work. Yeah. So you can cross big distances, and it's almost like, okay, ready, go, and the players have got to sprint out. Right now, if I've got 6 pods, I can have 3 at the top, 3 over here. I've got a line of 6 players waiting. It says go. They run out to try and see who can tap it the first, and I can do that 40 meters away. Right. The other thing that was really interesting, if you take the agility T, right, I'm able to tell a team, okay, acceleration over that amount of time, because rugby union, while it looks like you're running long distances, it's really short distances but fast, and we're calling it break the line, right? So and you get ahead, and you find space. So you can measure someone's forward motion. Then you can measure which of their legs is the strongest. Left leg, so I'm going to push off on my left leg to go out to that side of the tee. Right leg, because I'm coming this way. Running backwards, I can measure all of those things. And just based on those numbers, if I moneyball it, all right, if I moneyball it and I have a look at my team, I'll know from a game strategy point of view that if I'm going to have this player on the right wing and he is strong on his left leg, all right, he's always going to want to go outside. Okay. So any movement that I'm now going to do, he's going to try and go outside because that's his strongest leg potentially. Or if he's, if he's on this side. So it could even inform the strategy. You go, this guy's got an amazing sidestep, but he steps off his right foot. So therefore, where should we do this move? When you start analyzing it like that, it just like it's the matrix. It's just like, oh my goodness, the things you can do. So I can tell you, are we going to be good going forward, backwards, sideways, and you can, put game day type when you get to the middle, that's your whistle, get back. Because when there's a penalty against you, if you ever watch the Springboks play, you'll see they don't walk when there's a penalty against them. They run back. Okay. They run back because you got to run back 10 meters and then face. So all of these kind of game day scenarios can be practiced, but you've got to know the game, right? You've got to know the game. You've got to know the outcome. And then you got to go, okay, now that I know the outcome, how do I work it backwards? And you can absolutely do that.
So are you a Springboks fan through and through since your roots are in South Africa?
Until the day I die. All right, Springboks forever. So I'm very fortunate to know a couple of Springboks. Jesse Kriel, right? He's an absolute beast. Willie Leroux. I know all the when they were here recently, I took the family to meet them all and get photos, and they were just so humble. But during lockdown, when the Springboks were here, I actually hooked Willie Leroux, who's the fullback, and Jesse Kriel up with a set of BlazePods. And while they were sitting in their hotel, they were tapping, getting so at least they could do something. And I saw Jesse now recently, and he was going, I can use my feet, and I said, yeah, absolutely. So I actually called I think it was the Real Madrid one. I called it the hot stepper because hot step is a slang for these kids who can sidestep really quick like a Ches and Colby. So when the Springboks came out, I actually created a whole bunch of games and I called it the hot stepper with pictures of Cheslin in the air doing his thing. So I mean that's the other fun thing is what you name it and what you call it and creating the video. So yes, and I'm born in Durban, so I'm working with the Bulls, but my favorite team is the Sharks. However, the Bulls have just been amazing because they just it's such a pleasure to work with them. And I just spoke yesterday to James Stannard, who was the Australian women's sevens coach. He bought BlazePods from us like 3 or 4 years ago. And he's just gone over to the Western Force in Perth. And I phoned him yesterday. I said, hey, mate, I've got so many rugby drills for you. And he says, as soon as his BlazePods are out of storage, like he's just moved to Western Australia, he's going to give me a call and I'm going to walk him through it. So yeah, Springboks forever until the day I die.
Nice. I had one of my friends when I was a personal trainer, Rion Hamilton, played for the Blue Bulls, and then he played for the Springboks a little bit. And then he came out here and played for the USA Eagles. So he was from Durban. He's from your hometown.
Good man.
Yeah, back in the day. So yeah, big in rugby again. I've seen you got them in the hands of out here, like our teams, like the All Blacks, right? Because they've dominated for so long, but seeing them using it and seeing you put that in the hands of all these professional rugby teams, I think is just has been just really cool.
Yeah. And Taekwondo, by the way. So before you go on, and Taekwondo. So I have a friend who is way up in Taekwondo and he's based in Cape Town. His name is Jaron Phillips. And what was amazing about BlazePods is I'm a black belt in Taekwondo, and we were able to go there and go, okay, what is the outcome we're looking for? And then we created drills right there on the spot. So with his knowledge of Taekwondo, my knowledge of Taekwondo and BlazePods, we were creating stuff. And he put it out on Instagram. And 2 weeks later, the Czech Republic went and bought themselves a set of BlazePods, and now they're posting about what they are doing. So I've been able to get to people who are at the top of their game and then say, right, here's BlazePods, and then get them to influence other sports. So who knows? Marcello Catita in Italy, he played for Italy in 3 World Cups, sent him a set of BlazePods, and he's using it with his clubs and his. So that's what I do. I put it in the hands of people who are going to be influencers, and then support them, and then just set them free.
Yeah, you had brought something up that I think is really interesting. We talk about data analytics a lot, and some people will look at a drill and say, "Oh, I got my score and I got my reaction time, but where are the other analytics?" And you use something that I use it regularly too, which is pretty great. It's the performance tests. And these tests have a lot more data analytics. Like you said, you can do that t-test and analyze who's better on the left side or right side. All of that shows based on the different drills. So not all drill is going to give you these specific analytics, but there are drills on there that are specific to get that from you. And so those are found in the app under the performance tests. There's the 4 buttons at the bottom. It's one of them. Click on that. You can find performance tests, because I think that's...
And you can download all your data. So there it is. And then from another competition point of view, if you put up your leaderboard, if you've got your computer there and you're letting the leaderboard go, it creates the hype. And they go, wow, where are you? Where are you? I even did it with a corporate company asked me, could they borrow my BlazePods? It's a company that I work with. I said, sure, no problem. And they ran a BlazePod booth at and they're a financial company, and people were coming to talk about financing, investing, and they were tapping away, and they won the best exhibit using BlazePod. So we're everywhere, man.
Yeah, Lindor Chocolates had one out at their I don't know, it wasn't the US Open, but one of their tennis opens, which I think is pretty darn cool. One of the greatest things that we're doing now is, you talked about it. You said you call it the hot stepper or the fast stepper or something.
Hot step.
In England, when people are, dribbling the ball or keeping the ball up, it's called like keepy uppies. Like, I hear a lot of people talk about that. So it's interesting because different cultures are calling things differently. And so when we look at an app, it's like, oh my gosh, like one of the guy naming it, he's from England. So there has a lot of like English kind of like soccer specific names. And if you fence, there's different names for fencing things. And if you're a boxer, there's different names for boxers. And so it's really hard to get the right names and be authentic until now. And I want to talk a little bit and just tell you probably know about the new training hub that's coming out. We'll kind of end with this, but the training hub is essentially Instagram for BlazePod. It lives on the website right now, but essentially it'll basically say Hank. It'll have your profile picture. It'll have your social media. It'll have a little bit of profile information about you, or a short bio. And then it can have every single one of your drills. So everybody who is taking in this webinar can go to blazepod.com, click on Training Hub, search Hank as a creator, and see all the drills you're doing for rugby, all the drills you're doing for Think, Feel, Do, all the drills you're doing for resilience, and just building that. And then they go, this guy's cool, I want to follow him. So then they can follow you on your social media channels right there. So it's a great way for all the authors and contributors to actually build up, and great way for you guys to help us put more material, more content into the app, and a great way for us to help you build your brands, because you're such a dynamic human being. You're just all the way across the world, and hard to access.
Yeah. So just on that, I remember in South Africa, I was trying to get kids moving, and I thought, how do I do that? And we actually came up with a version of the hacky sack. We just made it ourselves, because you got to think, in a township, they don't have access to money for things. So what could they do? Well, they could find an old sock, fill it with gravel and sand, fold it in fold it in a couple of times, and now you've got this little bag, and they could play hacky sack, foot sack, or whatever they call it. So it's just interesting that whatever sport you've got, BlazePods can work with you. Whatever you're trying to achieve, BlazePods can work with you. I'm taking them with me on corporate days when I'm training, and I'll have a table with BlazePods. Hey, come and test your ability. And then you just raise the temperature, and everyone's like excited again. And then they're listening to what you're talking about. So back to, if movement creates a different set of demands on your body physiologically and chemically, and you're just in a better space. So if I can get people into a better space, then I can have a conversation with them about things, even from a pastoral care. When, as you said, when the kids are losing it, bring them in, tap on the BlazePods, and they can hit them and go for it. Hit them and get your anger out, and then all of a sudden they start laughing, and then okay, now I'm a little bit more receptive. So man, the uses, I just sit here and I think I've got to stop thinking about what I can do with BlazePods, because it just just explained.
So awesome, Hank. You're so fun to talk to, man. I really appreciate just you as a human and everything that you've brought to the industry, and youth development, leadership. Some of this I didn't know about you. I love all the people you've studied under. Some of the same people that I research regularly too. It's awesome. So where can our viewers find you? What is website handles? Now's your time to pitch your books.
Now's the time to pitch everything. Okay, cool. So on Amazon with my name, Hank VDM, all my books are there. All right, and I'm constantly adding to that.
Real quick, that's Hank VDM.
MERWE. So the W in Dutch is a V. Yeah, MERW. The W becomes a V. It's pronounced a V. Hank VDM. You'll find me on Amazon. The books are great there. There's books for adults. Live on purpose. If you're in real estate. So literally, what I do is I try and build high performing teams, and I do that through neuroscience. I do that through leadership. I do that through resilience. My website is yesicanresilience.com. Yesicanresilience.com, and everything's on there. Right.
Awesome.
Everything's on there. So the BlazePods are there under physical. The emotional intelligence is there. And by the way, what I didn't talk about, I just want to jump that in quickly. That emotional intelligence test that we've got for sportsmen, you'll know this, that sportsmen have got a very specific lifespan. And there's before they become famous, there's while they're famous, and there's after. And we've actually got an assessment for while they're famous. All right, to actually help them in terms of their emotional side of their sports. And as I said, if you do this, I can tell you how your athlete is going to be. Now, if you take everything and you put it all together, now we've got a holistic way of dealing with an athlete. We've got the mental, we've got the mental side of things, we've got the emotional side of things, and we've got physical. I think every athlete should be thinking, think, feel, do. How do I think better? How do I feel better? And then I'll do better. So every athlete in the world, and this is available to them right now. You don't have to go for, major psychology sessions. You've got it all. Everything you need is within you now.
I love it. Yesicanresilience.com. Hank VDM, you're the best ever, brother. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for helping us with our webinar. Thank you, brother.
My pleasure. Anytime, and look forward to seeing anybody. And contact me. Get hold of me directly. I'm available. If I can help, I will.